Welcome to The Roar, podcast for fans of the Detroit Lions. My name is Demetrius. With me, as always, the super producer extraordinaire, Mike Ward. We're coming today to talk mostly free agency, exciting time with the new GM, new coach for the Lions. We're going to cover like the league in general. We hope you know where to find us, like Spotify, SoundCloud. This on our Facebook page, you can find us, might be the best way. I think we might be on YouTube as well, but we're coming stream style, live and in living color. And we wanted to sit down because there's so much going on with the new league year, with the reduced cap and all the Lions stuff. We thought let's get together and do similar to what we did with the Matthew Stafford trade. Let's sit down and do a free agency. We were always going to do a free agency podcast. I think last year we did a really long, maybe hour and a half. We're probably not going to do that, but we're gonna hit a few things. Mike's got a couple of good questions for me. We're certainly going to talk Lions offseason in general, and just kind of what's going on with the league and all this movement, the quarterbacks and everything. So we're going to jump right into it. I'll kick it over to Mike for the first question.
All right, so I want to get your general thoughts on free agency as a tool and where it fits in this team building process.
Yeah. So that's an interesting thing. So I have this long thing that I've probably done twice on our regular game podcast around what's the job of the GM? Like my feeling, originally it was 4, but then I added trades. So I'm sure he has a lot of job functions. His job description reads quite long, but I think it's essentially 5 things. It's trades, it's free agents, signing free agents, it's hiring coaches, managing the salary cap, and the draft. And the long version, I articulate how the draft is the most important of all of those. Everything else works from the draft. If you draft well, and development is a coaching function from the draft. But if you draft well, you can hire an above average coach because a good coach can win if he's got talent. If you draft well, you don't have to make major high price free agent signings because you're drafting well and developing young talent. And the key in this league is to get production from players on rookie deals. That's really the sustainable thing, particularly at quarterback. There's a window before you have to re-up your quarterback. And if it works, you're Patrick Mahomes and you win the Super Bowl. And if it doesn't, Mike's my guy, but Mitchell Trubisky is taking a flight to Buffalo. So that's kind of how it is. When you pass on Mahomes and Deshaun Watson and move up and give up, I'm not gonna beat up the Bears today. I mean, Mike's here; he can do that if he wants. But you don't have to sign major free agents if you draft well. Your cap is generally healthy for the reason I just said. You're generally working with good players on rookie deals that are manageable, and you don't have to make major trades. So those 5 things are huge. And this week, to a degree, all of them except coaching have been in play. We had a major reduction in the salary cap because of the impact that COVID had on the league this past year. And they take the numbers and they base it on sort of football revenue. It's not a real complicated process, but when they come up with the cap number, it's based on last year's revenue and what happened. So for the first time probably ever, I don't know that the cap has ever gone down. And I'm not 100% certain it went down this year. I know it didn't go up as much as they had projected. So this year, the free agent class was huge. There was a lot of talent because as of 4 p.m. on Wednesday the 17th, that's called the start of the new league year. Every team had to be under the cap. You have to be under the cap at the start of the new league year. The Lions had to be under the cap to execute the Matthew Stafford trade to the Rams. That wasn't official until Wednesday at 4 o'clock. But to get there, the Lions had to make a bunch of moves because they were over the cap, like pretty much everyone else because of the reduction in the cap. So that's important to understand that when you're talking about Mike's question of where does it fit in team building. In general, it should be supplemental. It should be you adding a piece here or there. You should be signing that 1 or 2 free agent that helps you get from good to very good or very good to great. The best free agent signing ever to me is years ago, aging myself, Reggie White to the Packers. That was the last piece they needed to be Super Bowl champs. And it was the case, and everybody that's getting paid this week has Reggie White to thank for it, quite frankly. But this year, because of that cap thing, there's normally not a big class because you don't let really good players hit free agency. If it's your guy, you re-sign him. And if he's really good and you somehow didn't agree on a deal, you tag him. You put the franchise tag on him. This year, it was almost the opposite. You were seeing guys get released, and you're like, wait, who got released? Like Geno Atkins got released by the Bengals? Geno Atkins is like a 6 or 7-time Pro Bowler. I know he's probably 32-ish, but Geno Atkins still has really good football left in him, and now somebody else gets to pay him. And I don't know if that was a cap casualty or the Bengals have a different plan, but when the COVID impact to the cap was obvious, it became clear that a lot of teams, the Chiefs, had to release a Pro Bowl offensive lineman. They released both their starting tackles to get under the cap. Now, they ultimately made a good signing to sort of recover from that, picking up one of the better offensive linemen in the league. But there's a couple of things we're seeing because of this. So as a tool, in general, not this year, but in general, it's used to supplement, right? You've built the team through the draft. You have a couple of holes, and there's a guy that fits. And if you can acquire a guy in trade, like the Lions-Rams trade to me was the unicorn of trades. It literally was great for everybody. And trades aren't usually like that. Usually you evaluate a trade and you say, somebody got screwed, somebody lost, right? There was no loser. The Rams won because they got a future Hall of Fame quarterback that makes them a Super Bowl contender right now, which was the goal. The Lions won because they got a good quarterback who was in the Super Bowl a couple of years ago, who can probably, in the right system with some tweaking, get back to being a pretty good quarterback, a top 10 quarterback in the league. And they got a bushel of draft picks to help them rebuild. It's great for Stafford because he gets an opportunity to win over 2-3 years, whatever, 4 years, whatever's left in his career. He's going to get a chance to get a ring, which he deserves, and he wanted, and he literally got to go to the place he wanted to go. It was great for Stafford. And my feeling, particularly after watching his introductory Zoom call yesterday, is good for Jared Goff, because people generally are sort of scoping this trade out and saying the Rams weren't happy with Goff and they got rid of him. After watching that press conference, I came away with a different feeling. And I'm a cornbread eater. I don't run from that. So the dumbass Dans of the world, sports talk radio idiots of the world are going to take this negative view. I think there's a thing that can be said if you're Jared Goff, and this is probably how the phone call went with Brad Holmes, a guy who helped draft Jared Goff, who knows Jared Goff. They had a lot of offers. The Lions had reportedly multiple offers, and there's one that's been floated, Bridgewater in the 8th from Carolina. I don't know that's a good offer. They would have had the 7th and 8th pick in this year's draft, and they would have had a quarterback in Bridgewater so they wouldn't have had to draft a quarterback. They could have added 2 of the top 8 players on defense to a defense that was ranked 29 or 30. That's an appealing offer. The reality was what Brad Holmes said yesterday was we had a bunch of competitive offers. The fact that Jared Goff was included in this offer made this the best offer. What that says is, Jared Goff, you can say the Rams didn't want you. You could say the Lions wanted you because the Lions didn't have to make the trade with the Rams. The picks are future picks. They could have gotten the 8 and Teddy Bridgewater this year. And they passed on that because of Goff, according to Brad Holmes. Now you could say, oh, that's just what they're saying. The reality is that's the trade they made. They executed it. And he said, I know who Jared Goff is. And 5 years ago in the draft, when we needed to trade up, Les Snead asked him, Les Snead's GM of the Rams, his boss, is there anybody you would trade up to get? Give me one name of a guy you would make a trade up to get. And he said, there aren't too many guys I would trade up for. I trade up for Goff. I trade up to 1, right? That's what I mean. So it's going to be a big trade. You're giving up a lot. Is there anybody you trade up to 1 and say, that's a guy we're trading up to the top of the draft for? And he said, I only gave him one name. I told him I'd trade up for Jared Goff. So my point of that was, it's not just that something happened in LA and the Rams wanted to move on from him. I hate that term so much, move on from. That's so stupid. There's a degree of the Lions wanted him. The Lions wanted him. Brad Holmes wanted him. And I think if you're Jared Goff, you take that away and you go, okay, there is a group of people over there, and Anthony Lynn and Mark Brunell and Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell, who want me there. So they're going to be, because you could say, it might be a little bit of a stretch, but you could say they're tied to him. I don't know if I believe it. It's only 2 years, and you can probably get out next year if you wanted to. Their success at the beginning of this rebuild is tied to Jared Goff. If Jared Goff comes in and plays really well at the level he played that Super Bowl year, there is no quarterback issue in Detroit. You give him an extension a year from now, you sign him 4 years, 120 or whatever the number is, and your quarterback situation is set for the next 5 years. If he doesn't, that's fine. You got 2 number 1s next year. So free agency, in this case, a trade, this whole last couple of weeks has not been the normal supplement your team. It has been reshape your team. I mean, teams are signing. New England basically said, okay, let's just sign everybody, right? There was a quote, and I don't know who to give credit to. They spent like $140 million in 3 hours, right? And it's funny when you put it that way. And I mentioned to someone, it reminds me of this movie that was made before Mike was born. It's a Richard Pryor movie called Brewster's Millions, right? And the whole concept was he had an inheritance. $300 million. He can only get it if he found a way to spend $30 million in 30 days. And this whole movie, but he couldn't like get any value or have any assets. He couldn't give it away. There was all these conditions, right? But he had to spend $30 million in 30 days to get $300 million. And the Patriots spent $140-something million in 3 hours. That struck me as funny. I went back and looked up the premise of that movie because I thought it was pretty funny. But so when we got to the 17th and everybody's under the cap, you started seeing a couple of things, right? You started seeing one-year contracts. You started seeing deals get restructured so that teams could get under the cap. This is all unique to this year. Like next year, there isn't going to be all these guys getting released and you're looking at names like, wow, that guy got released. And the players are going to be fine. Somebody else is going to sign them. But it creates some unique things. Like Kenny Golladay is an interesting thing right now. He's not signed. As of the time Mike and I opened this up, he has not signed yet. And he's, by all accounts, the best receiver in the free agent market.
You know,
it is not a
big
deal.
Suitor for Golladay right now.
I do. I do. And he's from Chicago, and he could end up being a Bear. I know the Giants are interested. I think the Bengals talked to him. I don't think it's certainly not about talent. I think there's speculation, like around the 4-letter yesterday, that they're looking into his character. I don't think that's it. Kenny Golladay is a good dude. He's a good dude. I asked people in Detroit, and there are people calling Stafford. I think it's different. I think what's happening is he hit the market in like the worst possible year. So there's a deal where, does Golladay sign a 4-year deal right now? Because if he does, nobody can pay him what his real value probably is, which is probably 16-ish, right, per. So something around 4 years, 65, 4 years, 68. I don't know. He probably wants something around 4 years and 80, or 5 years and 80. Sorry, 5 and 80 is what, 16, right? So I think he wants to be somewhere up there. Teams can't do that right now. It's just the caps aren't healthy enough. There's probably a couple, and then he just might not be a fit there. There's a case to say, Kenny Golladay, bet on yourself. Sign a 1 year in the place where you're going to get the most targets and you can show what you can do. Hit the market again next year, or let them tag you next year. If they tag you, you're definitely getting over 16. I think the tag is 16 and a half, which the Lions turned down because they can't afford to pay a receiver 16 and a half at this point in their rebuild. So that was a smart move. But so he's got a tough decision. And I think it is Golladay weighing those options. I think it's about teams to a degree, but I think what Kenny Golladay is really wrestling with is, do I go get that guaranteed money? Because 5 years, and let's say somebody gives him 5 and 70, right? That's less than market. It just is. Where the market is now sounds ridiculous, but that's less than market for a number one receiver in the National Football League. But 5 and 70 is going to get you 35 or 40 million guaranteed dollars. And I don't know how to tell a guy, walk away from 40 million guaranteed. You can take care of your grandkids. Like in the real life world that Mike and I live, you are set for life. And we don't know that you'll ever get this shot again. You could tear something. Anything could happen. But he's like 27. He's in the prime of his career. There's that part that says, go ball out for 1 year. Take 1 year, 15 from somebody, and go be Kenny Golladay. Go catch 85, 90 balls and 8, 9, 10 touchdowns. Next year, you're going to be getting 5 for 90 because they'll have the money, right? That's one of the impacts on free agency and how you look at building your team. The Giants need a number one. The Bears, wow, put him next to Robinson. Now you're looking at a deal where Andy Dalton looks like a better quarterback. And we'll get to Dalton in a minute. But if you're trying to give your quarterback weapons, Kenny Golladay, I think it would be a great signing for the Bears, especially if you'll do the 1 year, because then next year you can franchise him or sign him to a big deal. And I don't know how people feel about coming home, but he's a Chicago kid and he might want to play for the Bears. I think it makes sense. I think the Giants are going to make a push, but I think a lot of this is Galladay and his team saying, do we just get our money? And like they say, secure the bag right now. Set yourself up with 35, 40 million guaranteed and you're set for the next 5. Or do you take a chance of like buying the lottery ticket for next year? So that's what free agency this year has been and how it's been. And restructuring deals is great. There are players getting restructures because a restructure always helps the team. They can spread out the salary cap hit over multiple years. So if you're like Goff, and there were people saying the Lions should restructure Goff's deal because the money is over 2 years. So if they added 2 years to his contract, they could spread that out and the cap hit would be 4 years, meaning like cutting it in half, saving millions of dollars right now. But the upside to that for the players is you generally either get this huge bonus because they expedite some of your money that wasn't guaranteed before becomes guaranteed now, or they just throw extra guaranteed dollars over the life of the contract. So restructuring deals always sounds like, oh, the guy's doing the team a favor, helping them out with the cap. Players clean up when their deals get restructured. Make no mistake. Restructuring works for both. And it's generally a team cleaning up a mess. And there's a degree of Brad Holmes is cleaning up a lot of Bob Quinn mess. So long-term is going to be fine. They signed a new TV deal. The money's coming. They have to work in this current environment. But to your original question, should be a supplemental process where your organization has a couple of finite needs and you go out and you sign a guy because you don't have to worry about guys developing. These guys come in, they have an immediate impact. These guys are pros already. They've been in the league. They understand the league. And they usually can come in and fill a hole. And it's like 2 levels or 3 levels. It is, we have a ton of cap space because we suck. See Jacksonville. Let's sign like players and be smart with this money and get as many good players as we can to go from bad to good. You're the team that's good and you're trying to be like playoff competitive, but you're missing 2-3 specific holes. If I get some help at an edge rusher and I get a feature receiver and maybe some depth at running back, those are the kinds of things you go do in free agency. Or if you're a team that's right there and that one superstar can put you over the top. That Reggie White Packer example is the best one. I think that Deion Sanders probably benefited in free agency from that kind of concept a couple of times. So there's different levels to free agency and how you do it, but ultimately it should be supplementing holes. You shouldn't be building your team around free agents. That's a mistake. That's a mistake. So yeah, that's my general thought on free agency. I think there are teams that know how to do it and other teams that do it well and other teams that don't. And historically, the Lions, as a point, have generally either oversigned, like signed guys to too many years or to too much money. And it hurts. It takes a long time to recover from a bad free agent signing. So.
All right. So next thing I want to ask about, what do you think are the biggest winners in free agency so far?
So this question is usually a media type of deal where it's either who signed the highest profile players or who spent the most money. So the logical answer from a basic ESPN type scenario would be New England, right? They signed good players, a lot of them. They filled holes, right? So they signed Hunter Henry and they know who they are, right? When they've been at their best receivers outside of the Randy Moss year, the tight end. Tight end is huge in that offense. Gronk was Gronk for a reason. Tight ends, especially when they've had 2 of them, have been really important weapons in that scheme. So signing Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith, even though their numbers, 3 years, 37 million, 37 and a half, with like 25 guaranteed for Hunter Henry, that's a feature guy. That's feature guy money. So Hunter Henry is going to be huge. Jonnu Smith got 4 and 50. They put their money where their mouth is. They signed the guys they thought will help them. They got Matt Judon, the edge rusher from Baltimore, for I think 4 years and 50-something million there. They signed Nelson Aguilar to help. They got N'Keal Harry. They still have Julian Edelman. But now they are legitimately, okay, they filled holes. And they had the most opt-outs last year. A lot of guys didn't play last year because of COVID. But, some of those guys are coming back. Hightower is the biggest one. Dante Hightower is one of the better linebackers in the league. So you get him back from the opt-out. I think they cut a couple of their opt-out guys. Or they traded Marcus Cannon, and I think Patrick Chung retired, but they might have cut Marquise Lee. So they had a bunch of guys opt out, but they're going to get Dante Hightower back alone. So you're thinking about just 5 guys I named they're adding to a team that was, I don't know what they were, 7-9 maybe. I don't know that they're good enough to catch Buffalo. Not catch Buffalo. Win the division. I still think Buffalo's the better team in the division. Buffalo has the better quarterback in the division because they also re-signed Cam. And I'm actually a Cam guy. I'm a Cam Newton guy. I think that a healthy Cam Newton is still a really good productive quarterback. I think last year was so odd. No camps, no OTAs. It was just odd. But I think if Cam Newton is completely healthy with these weapons, they can win. So I think they're back in the playoffs for sure. I think they're giving Buffalo a run. I think you have to say Tampa. They're the champs, and they brought back everybody that mattered. Right. I mean, they may still bring back Ndamukong Suh or Leonard Fournette. I don't know. But Shaq Barrett and Levante David are back. They tagged Godwin. They brought back Gronk. Right. So they use free agency to keep your own. And that's an important part of free agency, as opposed to the Lions, who there's a list of guys who are gone, including Kenny Galladay. They didn't tag him. They let him go. But it fits where the Lions are. The Buccaneers are the Super Bowl champs, who are probably trying to make another run, right? Shaq Barrett, Levante David in particular. They may re-sign Ndamukong Suh, but these guys are important. Godwin was important. It was important enough that you put the tag on him. And he's going to get paid around 16, whatever the tag is for receivers. I think the Bengals signed probably the best pass rusher in the class. And they got a corner from Dallas, but they got Trey Hendrickson. I don't know if that makes them winners. I think it doesn't make them losers. The Chiefs had a nice bounce back move, signing Joe Thuney when they lost those 2 tackles. So I think it's hard to tell because, A, it's not over. There's still a bunch of really good players out there. And then a lot of guys have these bonuses that are triggered on June 1st. So you get what are called June 1st cuts. There's going to be another round of free agency June 1st where teams are going to add more pieces. I think the Lions might be more active after June 1st, although they've been pretty active already. And then you have this proliferation of quarterbacks signing 1-year deals other places. Like we talked about Trubisky in Buffalo. He's clearly going to back up Josh Allen. But, and at first I didn't get that. If Josh Allen doesn't get hurt, Trubisky never sees the field, what's the value? Is it just a check? Is it the practice time with Brian Daboll and being in the quarterback room? Does he become better? Because in this league, that could happen. Trubisky's going to he could take 0 snaps. And next year, somebody's going to be like, he benefited from working with Brian Daboll. Let's give him a 4-year contract because they're going to have money. They're going to have crazy money to spend next year. And somebody's going to sign Trubisky to a deal. Tyrod's doing a Tyrod, right? Houston's going to accept that whether it's legal issues or his own desire, Deshaun Watson's never playing another game in a Houston Texans uniform. That's my opinion. It's not a fact. So Tyrod comes in and guess what? Houston's going to trade Deshaun, somehow find a way to, guess what, draft a quarterback. And Tyrod is going to be training somebody else because that's what Tyrod does. That's literally his lot in life. But Tyrod's going to get $12 million. So nobody's puncturing his lung and he gets to breathe well and make $12 million. I'm happy for him. I'm always happy for a guy like that because by all accounts, that's a good dude who deserves to be in this league. It's just been like these unfortunate situations. Ryan Fitzpatrick goes to the Washington football team. Again, all these deals are like the same. 1 year, 10 to 12 million. And I will speak for Mike. If we could do a deal, virtually anything, where we can make like $12 million for 1 year work, our jobs, what we do, yeah, we jump on it. So I'm not mad at 38-year-old Ryan Fitzpatrick, you have to respect Ryan Fitzpatrick, even though he's played for like 9 teams. You respect this guy's carved out a pretty good career, made a ton of money. Again, by all accounts, seems like a good dude. I don't know if I guess he's going to start there. I don't think it's going to be Kyle Allen or Taylor Heineke. So unless they're drafting 19th. So unless they move, a major move, which give us a call in Detroit, you can get up to 7. It's going to cost you. There might be a quarterback there. And then, of course, I'm saving the best for last. And I'm going to lean back, drink a little bit of my coffee. I'm going to hand the mic over to my friend, my producer, my guy, because I don't know if I can do justice. Because there's got to be layers to this, and there's got to be some thinking that I don't understand. So I'm going to announce that the Bears signed Andy Dalton. And according to Dalton, I've seen this with quotes around it. They told me I'm the starter. So Mike, I'd like to get your thoughts on Dalton as a quarterback, what the Bears are doing. Whatever you want to say, go for it. It's yours.
Yeah, I think first thing you got to understand if you want to talk about the thinking in the front office of the Chicago Bears, is that there is no thinking. At this point, I think they're so burnt out from all the thinking that they've done. They're just like, all right, let's just throw it at the wall and see what sticks. I mean, my first assessment of the Dalton signing, I mean, I was bummed, obviously. I mean, if I look disheveled, if I look like I haven't shaved in a week, it's because I haven't, and it's because I'm a Bears fan. It's my first look at it was Dalton and Trubisky have very similar career trajectories. They have very similar quarterback ratings, touchdown interception ratio. Like the only thing Dalton doesn't have, I would say, is the legs. Trubisky's definitely got him beat in terms of like mobility and rushing yardage, stuff like that. But it's kind of like growing up. I was still kind of growing up when Dalton came into the league. He was always like a fixture in the league. Like he had several good seasons, a couple 4,200 yard passing seasons. He's got a winning record. So I mean, so does Trubisky, but I think that if anything, that's more on the defense than anything else. I mean, Dalton hasn't been stellar, but again, neither has Trubisky. Like I think it's a lateral move. And again, pretty much in every category except mobility. I think you lose your rollout. You lose just some of that dynamic offense, and you got to rely on his arm. You got to rely on his brain, and you got to hope that, like you said, if the Bears nab somebody like Galladay, you give him a couple weapons. I know they're shopping around. Not A-Rob, Miller.
Yeah.
I know they're shopping around Anthony Miller. They've already said they gave Akeem Hicks the green light to pursue trades. So I mean, there goes some of your pass rushing.
Yeah.
I just think the Bears have been they tried to be too creative. It's like they tried to outsmart everybody. Traded up to get Trubisky, signed Mac. They restructured his contract. Like they've been doing so much to kind of outsmart everybody else, and then at the end of the day, you still got to compete with Aaron Rodgers. So.
Right. And we had a point. It's not absurd to say that Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace's jobs, like, they got to be on the line, right?
Honestly, yeah. At this point, and not to bring too much baseball into a football show, but I thought the Cubs were sellers this year because they were like just. They traded Darvish and blah, 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 whatever. Yeah. The Bears are giving them a run for their money. I'm more excited to watch the Cubs, and like the more the Bears announce any transactions in this offseason, I've just been like, oh, when is opening day for MLB?
Right. Yeah, and that's what threw me off was I felt like, and I can relate because a year ago, Matt Patricia and Bob Quinn were in the same mode. Right, where the new owner had given them an edict. You guys need to win or be playoff competitive. And she stayed to her word. But they were making moves last year. Like, we're trying to be better now to save our jobs. For the most part, they backfired, right? I think that the Bears feel like it's the same thing to me, except the Andy Dalton move doesn't feel that way. The Andy Dalton move feels like we're fine. We don't think we're getting fired. We think we can pull this. Now, if they go sign Galladay and maybe some other creative defensive signing that I don't know about, you're right. At the end of the day, they weren't so bad that they can't compete for a playoff spot. And I think that Andy Dalton, I personally think Trubisky's a better quarterback, but I'm not a Bears fan. So I didn't see every game he played. I know he manhandled us multiple times. So my baseline opinion of Mr. Trubisky is how he played versus the Lions. And we could do a podcast just on how Trubisky played against the Lions. Trubisky looked great. He mobile, his feet. So I don't necessarily get it, but I am admitting right up front, I don't have the requisite set of knowledge of Mitch Trubisky like I have of, say, Matthew Stafford. So I don't know. My opinion is based on limited, in our world, we say limited data points. I have limited data points on Trubisky. So
I think Trubisky gets the disservice of having to be compared to Mahomes and Watson for the rest of his career.
Yep.
When you make such an aggressive trade, Trubisky, when you could have got either one of those guys, and I mean, I heard the Bears never even talked to Watson.
Right.
And Trubisky must have just wined and dined him and said the right things, and I mean. It was confusing because I think he only had like 1 year of starting experience or something in North Carolina. It wasn't anything like earth shattering. So I didn't see it. I didn't see it at the time. I think the level of expectations was in the Bears fandom. Like the level of expectations is always going to be extraordinarily high. For your defense, because we're the monsters of the Midway, and because we've never had like a solid quarterback, at least not in the past like 20 years.
Right.
I mean, this was Cutler City for like almost a decade.
Right.
So,
right. Yeah.
Everybody was so fed up with Cutler. We're like, oh, we can't get any worse than Cutler, and then
maybe.
yeah. Hold my beer, says Mitch Trubisky.
Yeah,
right. It's still for what I'm seeing. It's still kind of a fluid situation. I've heard that the Bears still have a pulse on the Russell Wilson situation. I don't know how true that is, but I read that they gave them like 3 first rounders and like a second or third rounder, or they offered. Like 3 first rounders, or maybe it was, instead of a second, it was like a mid rounder or something like that, and 2 starters. And I think it was Hicks and Fuller. They released Fuller. Hicks might be gone, so who knows. And maybe when maybe Seahawks were like, nah, Russ isn't going anywhere, and then the Bears were like, fine, let's get the redheaded stepchild.
The red rifle is what you actually mean. Yeah. So sure. I think the whole Russ thing was always smoke. I don't know how much I ever truly believed in the Russ thing, because all my information was coming from like reporting from sources that I don't know how I feel about them. But I think a big point you made earlier, which is huge, which is moving up. Well, drafting him at number 2 creates a certain level of expectation already. Having moved up, you then multiply that, and the Bears fans like yourself will see him from a baseline set of expectations, because somebody once said success or failure, happiness or sadness is a product of expectation, right? The reality is I don't expect the Lions to win more than 5 games this year. So if they were to somehow get to 8-8 or 10-6, I would be thrilled. You shouldn't be thrilled when your team goes 8-8, but where they are in the process, it will be under the baseline of that defense was horrible. They've got a lot of work to do. I don't expect much, right? When you're drafted number 2 and your team passed on Mahomes and Watson, like number 2, like the number 2 pick in the draft should be, and then I think there's a second piece, which is the coaching staff. The organization owns a degree of development, particularly with quarterbacks, but I think in most positions, Nagy didn't draft him, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. The coach before that, was it?
Yeah, correct. It was John Fox. Honestly, I think it was Pace. I think Pace was the mastermind.
Pace was the GM. I don't know that Mitch Trubisky was ever Matt Nagy's guy. And there's a lot that goes into that, right? If your coach doesn't truly believe, like there's a Detroit example for any scenario you throw at me that I can pull from history. And the most appropriate one is a kid named Joey Harrington, right? He was out of Oregon. We took him 3rd. High expectations, right? We had struggled at the quarterback position. We've been looking for our quarterback. And I want to say this must have been 03 or 05, I don't know, wherever it was. But it was a Millen choice. And I think he had 3 coaches and 4 offensive coordinators in his 3 years in Detroit. I don't care what you think of Joey Harrington. He wasn't a bum when we took him. He was a young kid with potential. The organization owned a degree of putting him in a position to be successful, whether it's the scheme, and if he wasn't a West Coast guy, Mariucci should have traded him day number 2. Whatever it was, but that kid never had a chance. That guy never had a chance in Detroit. And I contend he was a really good college quarterback. He had a certain skill set. And as an organization, the Lions failed. I'm not saying Joey Harrington was going to be great. He certainly would have been a damn sight better than he was. He would have never been Matthew Stafford, to circle around and bring everything back to Matt Stafford. He would have never been Matt Stafford. But Joey Harrington could have been a good quarterback in this league, and he was done a disservice in his time in Detroit. He just, we don't know what he could have been. I don't put any of it on him because truly the organization has to give a player a path and say, if you do these things and follow this path, you have a chance to be successful. His paths changed every year. His OC was changing. He never had a shot. So we don't know what Joey Harrington could have been. And that's enough of a Joey Harrington rant. We don't need to jump down a Joey Harrington rat hole. So I think the Bears can recover from this, right? Sign Golladay, make another signing. The Bears can jump on his list. This question started with winners and losers, right? The Bears could get on this list with 2 signings, right? If they have the ability to. I think the restructure of Mac probably helped, probably created some cap space. If you let Hicks go, I think it's a bad idea. Another limited data point, that guy played well against the Lions twice a year. So I am familiar with his work. Somebody will scoop him up quickly. But I don't know where their cap situation is now after restructure. But if they're talking to Galladay, they must have some money, because you can't even call that guy if you don't have 14, 15 available right now. If you sign him long-term, that'd be a good move, good sign, because now you got him and Robinson and you got weapons, and even the Red Rifle could probably be successful with those guys out there. So we'll see. I think the Bears still have a chance to get on this list, but my viewpoint of the Bears moves and yours will always be slightly different. And it's always interesting to talk about, especially when we juxtapose them against what the Lions are doing. But I hope they do something interesting to help you out, because I don't know what the Cubs are going to do for you this summer. Right? I'm not sure the Cubs are going to carry you for that long, but we'll see. We'll see. I might be wrong.
Yeah. The worse the Bears get, the better the Cubs look. That's all I'm going to say.
Exactly.
Yeah. So tune into my Bears-centered podcast, The Soft Growl.
Great.
So back to the Lions. Here's our last topic of the day. Let's talk about the offseason in general and free agency specifically. Give me thoughts.
So understanding again around what we just talked about, which is what you see as good or bad or success or failure is based on expectation, right? I don't know that true success in the National Football League is graded any other way than wins and losses on the field. But as an offseason, Brad Holmes was hired sometime in January. This guy has stacked, and I stole this concept because it's great. In the offseason, all you can ask your team to do, all you can expect from your team is make good decisions. Make good decisions. And then just keep stacking one good decision on top of another, on top of another. And Brad Holmes to this, and it might go back further. Yeah, I'm going to take it back further. I think I'm going to give Sheila credit. And it's just not cool in Detroit to credit anybody with the last name Ford. I am immensely impressed with how Sheila Ford Hamp is running the organization right now. She came out really early and said, I'm going to lean on smart people and make different types of decisions. And even if you're like an old school Fords need to sell the team nonsense person, you have to be honest and look at this and say, Sheila is doing it differently than her dad, and even differently than her mom. Sheila's doing this differently. And until they're on the field playing games, you can't give them a true grade. But to date, from the moment she's fired those guys a couple of days after Thanksgiving to coming out and saying, there's going to be a process. I'm going to put together a board. The board is going to help do the interviews, and then we're going to hire people, and we're going to do this. And the key word that she has used in almost every statement she's made, collaborative. Collaborative. I think there was 1 or 2 people making decisions when her dad ran the organization. He leaned on 1 or 2 people to advise him, and they made these very decisions that might have even seemed good at the time, because quietly, and nobody will admit it, I'll admit it, at the time they hired Matt Millen, that decision was wildly lauded as, a football guy running football. That's what it was, right? Because the guy before him, who quite frankly had the most success as a team executive, was named Chuck Schmidt. Chuck Schmidt, I think by trade, was an accountant, right? And you would hear these ridiculous jokes about a bean counter running the team. Look at the best 10-year stretch in the history of my organization. You know, the GM was Chuck Schmidt. He might have had a different title, but he was the guy making personnel decisions and football decisions. And the coach who has the best record, whether you like him or not, is Wayne Fonts. And Chuck Schmidt hired him. So you can make all, and that's a whole nother podcast, the Chuck Schmidt era, right? But at the time they hired Millen, people loved that decision. In hindsight, it turned out to be a very bad decision. Millen, by all accounts and limited info, made a lot of unilateral decisions, didn't listen to his people, didn't listen to his scouts, would draft players based on reasons other than what his scouts were telling him. And I think he's even admitted that to a degree. So Sheila has come in from day one with this collaborative concept. The board was a great group of people in terms of the scope of authority she gave them, the diversity in the group, from Rod Graves to Mark Hollis to Chris Spielman. When this works, and I'm projecting that the Lions this is going to work, we're going to go back. The 30 for 30 on how the Lions turned it around is going to start. The first person on the screen should be Chris Spielman, right? Sheila should be sitting next to him. Chris Spielman's a big part of this. Now, yes, I'm a Spielman fan from when he played here. Chris Spielman got it from day one, always got it. And when Sheila said, I need him in this group, I need him to kind of be at the front of this group. Barry Sanders was part of the group, and there were other people. Disner is an important guy in the organization. When she got the concept of collaboration, she set a tone. She set this organizational tone of, this is how we're going to do things. That is as big as anything else. Because when this group got together and somehow in unison said, Brad Holmes is the guy. Brad Holmes is the guy. They had a strategy. They had a thing they were looking for. And they all said, he blew us away. My feeling is they understand the importance of the draft. Go back to the beginning of this podcast, and I said, everything works from the draft. That is, by all accounts, his strength, right? They looked at his record. They listened to him talk. They understood what he wanted to do. John Dorsey is a big deal. John Dorsey is a part of this collaborative effort now. John Dorsey has built a winning organization. You can say what you want. He's been a part of 2 winning organizations. He adds value. And it's still the same. Sheila set the tone of collaboration. We're going to collaborate. Smart people are going to talk through and make good decisions. They have made good decision after good decision. To accept Matthew Stafford's need or desire to be traded was a good decision. To handle it in the classy manner that they did, and he in reverse, he has been nothing. He is awesome. I'm sorry, I'm not going to do a Stafford segment right now. How he's handling leaving the city, the things he said about the city, the open letter to the city, talking about the city will always be a part of me. He is nothing but class, and we're going to miss him. Irrespective of what Jared Goff does, time is going to help us understand how good a dude Matthew Stafford is and how really good a quarterback Matthew Stafford was for us. History will take care of that. But the decision to hire Brad Holmes' decision as a group, I'm sure Dorsey had input into trading him. And then when they executed the trade with all the options they had, which I talked about earlier, the Rams, the execution of that trade is brilliant. It's brilliant. I can't say anything more about that trade other than it was great for everybody, right? It is the perfect trade. It's a unicorn of trades, like I call it. He knows Jared Goff. He knows what he's getting. This is not some blind deal of, oh, I don't know what that guy. They know what Jared Goff is. And in every way, the contract standpoint, it's great. It's 2 years, $43 million, right? You can get out of it next year with a little pain. In 2 years, you're out if it doesn't work. But the reality is there's a very good chance it works because Jared Goff, we have seen him be successful in this league. We have seen him play very well in this league. And Brad Holmes knew that. That's why they moved up and drafted him. He knows what he needs to develop. So he can sit down with Mark Brunell, Anthony Lynn, Dan Campbell, and they can say, this is the position we need to put Jared Goff in to be successful, right? That was a great decision to execute the Rams trade, get the future picks, get a quarterback for now, sets you up perfectly, right? It sends a message collaboratively because Dorsey had a big part of it, and I'm sure other guys. We're building something, signing Dan Campbell to a 6-year contract, Holmes is a 5-year deal. This is not a win now mentality. They're building something. I think not tagging Kenny Galladay was a brilliant decision. Nothing wrong with Galladay. He's a really good player. right now, where the organization is, you cannot pay a wide receiver $16 million. Can't do it. I said this 2 years ago about Darius Slay, who I really liked. They couldn't pay Darius Slay $18 million. No, the Eagles did. Okay. Kenny Galladay's in his prime. He's a very good player. Can't do it. So what do? No. There's some cap-related issues where you got to work through, but you go down and you say, okay, we got to make really smart decisions about the cap. So you release Danny Shelton. Good player, you save $4 million. You have to release Justin Coleman. Slot guy, Quinn probably overpaid for him. You save $7 million cap-wise. Desmond Trufant, good player, little older, was a New England guy, saved $3 million. Christian Jones, saved $2.5 million. Joe Dow, solid player, plays multiple positions, probably a difficult decision, but saved 1.6. So he starts cleaning up the cap with some of these guys, and then you supplement and you go find the right guys that fit. You sign Tyrell Williams to a 1-year, $6.2 million deal. If he's healthy and plays, that's a steal. That is nothing but a steal. And if he doesn't, it's a 1-year deal, 0 impact next year. You sign Jamal Williams to a really manageable 2-year, $7.5 million deal. You make your running back position stronger. The running back room just got better. These are all really good decisions stacked one on top of the other. And as an organization, I just want them to make good decisions. Jamal Williams will complement DeAndre Swift very well. And whatever you get from Kerryon Johnson is just butter. He's 26 years old. You only got $7.5 million, and he wasn't a full-time starter, so he's not burned out. He doesn't have tread on the tires, but he catches 30 balls a year as a receiving. And the number one thing I see, everything I read about Jamal Williams, he's one of the better pass protection running backs in the league. Sorry, pass pro is a big deal for running backs. It's quietly, but Deuce Staley, the new running backs coach, said, my number one thing, running backs got to be able to pass protect. You can't pass protect. You're not getting on the field. And he is, by all accounts, one of the better pass protection guys. He comes from an organization in Green Bay that knows how to win. So you know what you're getting, and that's another great signing, right? The trade for Brockers, Michael Brockers, ex-Ram. And by the way, I'm going to jump down the rabbit hole for me, right? Just for a second. So there's this narrative. The dumbass Dans of the world, right, are so burned by Quinn and Patricia, the Patriot way, all the signing of expatriates. There is this inherent thing where it's like, oh boy, here we go. They're going to sign a bunch of ex-Rams or ex-Saints because Campbell used to coach the Saints. Holmes used to be the GM of the Rams. I got to do this, Mike. I didn't want to, but this morning it was bothering me. That is in every walk of life. Like if I left our current company and went and got a leadership role in some other company, you are one of the first people I'm calling. Yo, come over here. Come with me. It is a degree of, I know you. I know what you do. I know I can trust you, right? There is a degree of, right now during COVID and the impact it has to the league and scouting and all the stuff you can do, there is a comfort level. But even more than that, flip this. Michael Brockers is a really good 30-year-old player with 9 years in the league. If Michael Brockers was an ex-Indianapolis Colt, would it matter? If his stats were the same and he didn't play for the Rams or the Saints, but he played for the Colts, if you're a fan and you would say, okay, he's solid. By all accounts, he's a leader in the locker room. They're already projecting Michael Brockers is going to be a team captain, right? Yeah, he good player. Everybody talks well about him, but he used to play for the Rams. Why in the hell does that matter? That is a classic dumbass Dan asinine thing to me. It is smart, and I've seen it play out in real life. I know it plays out in real life. You reach back to what you know. And guess what? Brad Holmes got this job. Brad Holmes got this job because he came into the meeting with Rod Wood and Sheila and Spielman and the whole advisory board. And he sold them on a couple of things. One, I have done this. I have worked in an organization that built their team through the draft and went to the Super Bowl 2 years ago. I understand how to evaluate players. So it makes sense to me that Goff is now a Lion because Brad Holmes knows him. He scouted him. He knows who he is. To trade and get Brockers is him saying, I know who Michael Brockers is. I know he'll fit our culture. I know he'll fit our scheme. I know he fits what we want to do. I know he's a good player because I know him. There's a confidence level when you know, right? When you're just hiring some random person you don't know, there are things you don't know. It's literally that simple. I think the Brockers trade was great. They gave up literally nothing. They gave up a 7th round pick in 2023. Not this year's draft. Not next year's draft. A 7th round pick in a draft 2 years from now when we're probably going to be a good team. And oh, by the way, it's a 7th round pick. And you're going to get a 30-year-old for 2 more years at basically $6.5 million. Manageable number, good dude in the locker room, productive on the field, and you gave up nothing. That is such a low-key great move by Brad Holmes. Re-signing Romeo to a $13 million a year deal. You lock up your best pass rusher. He's a double-digit sack guy who's 26. So you're going to get him in 26, 27, 28 years old for 3 years, $13 million a year, and he's a double-digit sack guy. When Trey Flowers wasn't even healthy for most of the last 2 years. The Romeo Okwara signing, fantastic. I think they just keep doing really, really smart stuff. And it's hard for me to look at their offseason as a whole. What they've done in free agency to me is I should put them on the winners list. They're all low-key, quiet signings, but they have a concept of where they are and what they want to do. And all of these decisions seem to fit a strategy. And that's the overwhelming thing I keep pulling out is they have a strategy. They know what they're trying to do. And everything that they're doing, in as much as you can in the offseason win and be successful, they're stacking good decision on top of good decision. And it just keeps looking better, right? They recently signed a kicker. I think when you look at what they've done, you have to assume the draft is going to be heavy defense, right? And we're going to do a draft podcast. We'll get there when we get there. I think that what they've done in free agency does 2 things. One, their cap situation is a lot healthier. You couldn't tag Galladay. That would have hamstrung you. I think the moves like Brockers and the receiver, Tyrell Williams, were just really smart. I think Jamal Williams would be a great addition on the football field. I think Brockers is great in the locker room and on the field. I think Williams has something to prove. He's trying to do what we talked about earlier, which he's going to go out and ball, try and catch 60 passes and 7, 8 touchdowns and get paid next year by either us or someone else. It gives us tremendous flexibility with doing anything at the 7 pick. We can move that pick. We can take, we could take a receiver. I don't know if I'm for it. We'll talk about that during the draft where we go with that pick. But the shorter answer is they have made a series of really good decisions this offseason, starting from the day they fired Quinn and Patricia. That has, in as much as you can gain confidence, cornbread aside, I like almost everything they've done. Almost everything they've done this offseason, I like. I can't think of a single move where I was like, no, none of them. The guys they let go made sense from a cap standpoint and a scheme fit. I don't know that you can sit and stand pat on this defense and say, yeah, we're going to work this out. This is a horrible defense. And that's not Christian Jones's fault. It's not Desmond Trufant's fault or Justin Coleman's fault. I said in every single podcast last year, I guarantee you, I said one thing in every podcast. This defensive scheme sucks. I hate this defensive scheme. It was consistent. So I think it was Danny Shelton's a good player. Somebody's going to sign him. He's going to play. But I think that you needed a complete overhaul in defense, which is, and I still think they're going to be better. I think somehow on scheme alone, irrespective of the players on the field, they're going to end up closer to 20 than 30 in terms of defense. And because of that, they might actually win more games. I don't know if they'll be better because I still think there's work to do. But that defense was so bad. I think in the draft, you focus on defense with the longer term future down the road. So the answer to your question is the Lions have had a really, really good offseason. There's still room under the cap. And I think June 1st cuts are huge. I think there's still more opportunity to do things. But at the end of the day, circling all this back to that original question, it all hinges on the draft. Everything else you do is good. If you draft well, it multiplies everything else. So their offseason will be graded chiefly on the draft. But to this point, I think they've had an excellent offseason. And I am immensely impressed with Brad Holmes. I'm excited. I'm excited about the future of this team, probably more than I have ever been. When they drafted Stafford, I knew he was going to be a stud. I was excited. But they were an 0-16 team, so there was a lot of work to do. This team, on the offensive side, has pieces. And I think Jared Goff's better than most people do. And I think they continue to make really smart decisions, which bodes well for the future. Because I think Sheila's built this culture, this collaborative culture. John Dorsey's a smart guy. He is an asset to the room. Brad Holmes seems to be a really smart guy. Chris Spielman's a smart guy, smart football guy for sure. I think the structure they have, the collaborative strategy that they're using is leading to really good decisions. And I think it'll eventually translate to wins on the field. Maybe not necessarily this year, but soon, because we still don't know what Dan Campbell is. That's still the question. What kind of head coach is Dan Campbell going to be? But I'm excited. It's awesome. So yeah, that's good stuff. I appreciate it, Mike. I think it was a good conversation. I loved it. I wish your Bears the best. I still think they might surprise you. We'll see. But yeah, excited. Free agency is a good time of year. This league dominates the landscape all year long. They don't give up the microphone for very long. You get a window between the Super Bowl and free agency where basketball or hockey or something. But then right now they've dominated the last 2 weeks. The draft is around the corner, and then they'll be in camp. So this league doesn't give up the mic for very long. So we appreciate you guys joining us. I think we'll have something pre-draft, probably 3 weeks, 3 weeks or so, third week of April. And then we'll definitely do something post-draft right afterwards, like May 2nd, May 3rd, we'll drop something post-draft. So those are next times to look for us. I think if you are a sports fan in general and you enjoy our podcast, check out the Sports Crib. It's a panel show that I have the honor of being a part of. It's pretty cool. And check out Mike's show, The Soft Growl, coming up soon.
I just first topic on the soft growl next week. I got a breaking news: the Bears hired assistant head coach Brant Smatrisha. So we'll see how that goes.
There you go. Looking forward to that. So look for the soft growl coming up soon. Mike, thank you as always. It's a good time. We hope you guys enjoyed it. Look for us soon, and have a good week, good couple weeks, and we'll talk to you soon.
That guys.
All right.